Hi everyone. So what I'm going to talk about is fairly new, not because we haven't thought about it for a while, but because it's taken us quite a while to put it together. And it's about third-party certification of unobservable wheat quality in Ethiopia, or more generally of unobservable cereals quality throughout Africa. And this is with Gesha Abate, that you know, Erwin Bolter from Wageningen, Alain de Janvry, and Betty Sadoulé. I don't know why she's in there. From Berkeley, with support from PIM, from IFPRI, and the National French Agency with partner from Digital Green. So, why did we start all this? This is a picture that looks at one trait that is of unobservable quality for wheat in Ethiopia, which is essentially flour extraction rate. And these are a number of observations that we collected in 2017 that looks at, oh great, thanks. That looks at the relationship between price and the quality, this unobservable quality attribute. And what you see here is several things, is that this is in rural Ethiopia. You have some really, really good quality, some lower quality. But what's interesting is that the price curve is fairly flat. When we look at data that we collect from millers in Addis Ababa, we see that, interestingly, you don't see higher quality, you don't see much lower quality. It's all getting averaged, and then, but there is a positive price gradient. So the story here is that most of these farmers, they typically sell with transactions that amount to about 200 to 300 kilograms. So aggregation is key. But when you do aggregation, then there is the quality signal may be lost along the way. So typically this is what the wheat value chain in Ethiopia looks like, which is fairly consistent with many other value chains that you may know. You have different types of farmers, some that produce low, medium, or high quality. They sell to cooperatives or traders with some levels of observable quality components, such as how dirty it is, how big are the kernels, etc. But there are some very essential quality attributes, such as flour extraction rates, that these agents do not measure. And therefore, the price for this particular quality attribute, the price is pretty much the same for all those farmers, which means that those high quality producing farmers, which means because they need to invest to produce this higher quality in terms of inputs, in terms of post-harvest management, etc., it tends to be not rewarded. Therefore, they tend to not produce this higher quality. What happens later on is that you get these different levels of quality that are bundled together. Then it comes to the miller. The miller, they have their equipment, and they are able to say, well, they take a sample from all of these bags, put it together, and they say the quality is average. And then on the other side, you have imports with very consistent, higher quality wheat that is imported, and therefore the whole value chain, wheat value chain in Ethiopia, is not mobilized to feeding in particular the cities. So this is the market for lemon type of value chain that we have in Ethiopia, which again, we did a survey for 20 other countries, 5 crops per country in Africa, and we find very much the same story. So what we have in mind is to say, well, how about some third-party measurement of this quality between the farmers and the aggregators? And is it true that if this independent quality certification body can say, well, this is low quality, medium quality, high quality, do they get different prices? Therefore, do they get an incentive to invest? And maybe this one producing lower quality is going to think about doing better quality now. The good thing is that if this works, then you can have some more homogeneous bundling of wheat, and therefore different prices, etc. So this is what we have in mind. We're preparing for a fairly large-scale randomized controlled trial through about 160 markets in Ethiopia, but there are a number of questions that, and so sorry, we're doing this to try and answer a number of questions. The first is how big is going to be the price premium from the miller side. We have some positive evidence. We talk a lot with the Millers Association that they're very interested in this. Yes, but how much of this price premium is going to be passed through? Does it differ according to the level of competition on these various markets? Oops, sorry. Is the quality assessment unbiased? So this is both institutional, but it's also technical. So we've been doing a number of studies on how reliably we can do this with fairly basic equipment, because we don't want to go too high-tech if we want this to be implemented everywhere. What I'm going to be talking about very rapidly here is there a willingness to pay from the farmer side for this type of services? And then the last question is, do we see some investment in quality enhancing inputs? So these are the questions that we're looking at throughout this project. So Here I'm going to be talking about a small experiment that we just did for willingness to pay for these certification services. How did we do this? So what are the questions that we ask? Farmers, we have a little model, extremely simple, that shows that farmers may be willing to pay for certification if and only if they consider that they can get good quality output. It's feasible to do quality. If they consider that without certification, quality is not adequately rewarded. And also if the price premium from certified quality output exceeds the cost of quality production plus the cost of certification. And two things, farmers may enhance quality at two stages. One is at production stage, quality enhancing inputs and practices, urea, planting in rows, managing your storage, etc. But also at pre-market stage. And I say pre-market, not post-harvest, but pre-market stage, which is how are you going to bring this wheat to the market? Essentially, are you going to clean it? So what we did is we used a simple Becker, De Groot, Marshak. De Groot, for a long time I thought that De Groot was actually Hugo De Groot, but I checked it's not. And so we used this De Groot, Becker, De Groot, Marshak auction type, whereby you just ask someone how much are you willing to pay, and then you have a price in an envelope, and you say if what you're willing to pay is higher than what is in this envelope, then you actually get you only get to pay what is in the envelope. And if it's below, then you don't get the service, which helps you recover individual by individual the actual willingness to pay. And so we did this. We went on the market, and we surveyed about 375, exactly 375 farmers. At the time, they were bringing their wheat to the market. So exactly the type of wheat that they bring in normal days. And then on the first day, we did this willingness to pay with real stakes. So we interviewed them ahead of time. Then they earn a bit of money, and then we asked them, okay, are you willing to use part of this money to pay for some certification of what you're bringing on to the markets, in reference to this particular wheat you have this particular market day. We also asked two hypothetical questions, which is how much would you be willing to pay for this service if it was in 2 weeks, like coming back in 2 weeks and coming back in 1 year. And the difference is that in 2 weeks, you have time to, sort out your grain, make it look a bit better, get the impurities out, etc. And in a year from now, you have the opportunity to change your production process. And so this could enhance your quality. And then 2 weeks later, we told those individuals, say, hey, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to do the same experiment. So if you want, come back again. And most of them did. And we'll do the same experiment, again with real stakes. So we have two different methods of elicitation, real stakes and hypothetical. So what do we find? So first of all, the average willingness to pay is fairly high. It's about a bit more than 20 Ethiopian bird, which is reported to per 50 kilograms bag, which are about 500 bird on average. So it's fairly high. What is interesting here is that this willingness to pay with high stakes right now, when you're on the market, having not changed the quality of your wheat, 2 weeks later, the same farmers with the actual wheat are willing to pay much more or significantly more, also because their quality has increased. So there is really scope for these farmers to increase their quality even just at pre-market stage. And we see the same sort of story looking at what would happen hypothetically, almost done, in 2 weeks or in a year from now. There is quite some heterogeneity. Essentially, we find that those farmers that have higher quality, I'm going to get to that, are willing to pay much more, and this is consistent across those two elicitation methods. And essentially what we find is that those that have, so we measure the quality, we sampled quality from each of these farmers, and we actually tested for quality. And what we find is that those that have higher quality are willing to pay much more, which tells you something about how informed they are about what they have, although the market doesn't recognize it. So we have strong support for the idea that those that have higher quality are willing to pay more for this. So main preliminary findings: farmers are willing to pay for certification and we estimate certification cost of about 20 Ethiopian birr that would cover 40% of the demand. Farmers are largely aware of the quality of their product, yielding different demands for levels across farmers. And farmers do respond by offering higher quality in both short and long-term run.
Thank you very much, Tanguy.